Well, thank you for clicking on my video. This is a video about stem cells, and if you watch this video you'll find out what stem cells are. You'll find out why they're important for your health and why differentiation problems, which is nothing to do with maths exams, can cause you health problems. And you'll have things to talk about with your healthcare professional and find out what I do to make sure my stem cells differentiate properly, and I have plenty of the stem cells as well. So, moving on, and here we go to the next slide. I'm not medically qualified. It's an important disclaimer. I have a degree in physics but not medicine. I have been a member of parliament, which has nothing to do with this. I am a tech entrepreneur, which shows me I'm into tech, I suppose, and I am a musician, again nothing to do with health, although it makes people happy, music, so that's quite good for health. I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice, and I've studied the issues of cellular health to improve my own health, and particularly starting with sleep. And I produced this video to be helpful to others with my research, some of which is original, most of which is just reading people's work and thinking about things. My channel is not monetized and I'm not sponsored, but I do have a patent application going in. If you're interested in anything in this video, please discuss the information in the video with your healthcare professional. Some things, molecules, various things you might do can be helpful. Even too much exercise can be a problem, for instance. And you need to talk it through with a healthcare professional to make sure you're not doing any harm. Most of the time things will do some good, but at times they can do some harm, so you need to be careful about that. Now, I like doing a short summary, and this short summary here goes into what I'll go into a bit more detail with links to the research, and I will put the links to the research papers referred to in this video in the comments section at the end, and you can read those. I do recommend it if you're into this sort of thing. Your body is continually renewing itself, and this involves cells called stem cells being turned from general multipotent cells, pluripotent cells, into specialized cells. And as people get older, this process of differentiation stops working properly, and it's now becoming clear why this happens and how it can be enabled to continue. Now, different parts of the body renew at different rates, so the intestines renew, the digestive system renews quite frequently, but the brain cells very rarely renew, and the bones renew more often somewhere in between. Now, by improving how your mitochondria work, which are the powerhouse of the cell, it's possible to make sure that differentiation continues more effectively, and there are a number of ways to improve the mitochondria. And there are also ways of getting more stem cells and potentially more telomeres. So those are things to be thought about. Now, this particular paper here, which was published in January 2022, is a really interesting paper which looks at how there are ways in which you can reduce the speed at which your cells deteriorate, slowing down the ticking clock, as it refers to here. And I will do another video about measuring cellular health, which looks not just at the epigenetic clock but other ones. This is worth reading, but I'm not going to go into all the details about it. Stem cells you can find all around the body, and when the body wants more stem cells, then the body takes the stem cells and it changes them. So it changes what's called the epigenome and makes epigenetic changes to them to make them specialized cells. So if it wants a liver cell, it turns it into a liver cell. If it wants a bone cell, it turns it into a bone cell, bone creating cell, that is. And as people get older, this process stops working properly. And research points to the oxidative stress on the citrate carrier in the mitochondria keeping a molecule called acetyl-CoA in the mitochondria when it needs to get into the nucleus. And this has been proven for osteoporosis, and the same mechanisms exist for other diseases, so there's a hypothesis that they are caused the same way. It's reasonable to think that they may be. So let's have a look at osteoporosis. So you have two types of cells. You have osteoclasts that take down your bones and osteoblasts that renew them, and your bones renew perhaps every 7 years. The problem is, as people get older, the osteoblasts are not properly created, and so the bones get taken away but not recreated. And recent research points to that being as a result of problems with acetylation. I've gone into much more details about this in another video, so I'm not going to go into all the details there, but I will refer to the paper. And this is the paper that looks at this issue. Now, Newton did say in the 1600s that he could see further in terms of physics by standing on the shoulders of giants. And that makes the point that science is a collective effort of humankind. But some people get Nobel Prizes from time to time, and I personally think this particular paper is of that sort of standard. I think it's very, very well done, but I don't nominate for the Nobel Prize. But it's worth reading, and it looks at the details of how the problems with this chemical called acetyl-CoA, which relates to the citrate carrier, mean that people's bones deteriorate as they get older. That's interesting. Now, let's have a look at other diseases. So as people get older, they get weaker physically. That's because they have fewer muscle cells. And that is thought to be caused by dysregulation in the mesenchymal stem cells. And mesenchymal stem cells are multipotent atom stem cells. That is, they are cells that can turn into lots of different things. And they're present in multiple tissues, including umbilical cord, bone marrow, and fat tissue. Mesenchymal stem cells can self-renew by dividing and differentiate into multiple tissues, including bone, cartilage, muscle, and fat cells, and connective tissue, which is what it says in Nature Portfolio, which is, I think, a reasonable definition, a reasonable source of a definition. So, let's have a look at this paper then. This paper here links osteoporosis and sarcopenia together. One would assume that if there's problems with differentiating cells for bone creation, there's also problems for differentiating cells for muscle creation. So that would give a good reason why, as people get older, it's harder to maintain muscle mass. So that if we can resolve that issue, which I think we can, remembering I'm not a medic, then that enables people to be healthier as they get older, which is a useful thing. Now, let's have a look at another disease, arthrosclerotic plaque. Now, there are generally two areas of problem in the arteries particularly. One is calcium being in the wrong place, and that can be measured with a calcium score. And the other is a surface layer of plaque, which can be measured with ultrasound to see what's developing. And that can cause blood vessels to get blocked. And if that happens, that can cause strokes, and it can cause heart attacks. So if we can reduce the amount of plaque, that will be good. Now, we have here a study in rabbits, mammals. Well, it's a hypothesis, isn't it? It gives evidence that a hypothesis is worth investigating. It's not proof that the same thing applies in humans. But it just says, well, maybe we should look at what we can do to make sure that this process works properly. And then let's have a look at the issue of nails and hair. Now, an interesting thing is that nails grow more slowly as people get older. And there's actually some good research done in 1979, which I'll point to in a moment. And this also links to stem cells, and hair quality also deteriorates in the ear. That means that as people get older, they can't hear higher frequency sounds. So let's have a look at what information there is on this. Now, the link at the end of the video points to this, but that actually gives us a PDF. Actually, we're not getting the PDF there. I get the PDF. I can't get the PDF. It's my presenter is not working perfect. But just if you go into it, it's very good, and it basically says that as people get older, their nails don't grow as fast. Now, let's have a look then at what happens with people as they get older. Human nail stem cells are retained but hypofunctional, meaning not working very well. So we've with this hypothesis that actually this issue about acetylation relates to the failure to differentiate stem cells in a number of areas, not just osteoporosis. And then arguably this links also to the slowdown in terms of nail growth, which is another way of measuring cellular health. And I will do a video about measuring cellular health. So if we know that this problem is caused by the difficulty of differentiation, and that means we need acetyl-CoA to get into the nucleus of the cell from the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse, into the sort of control center where the DNA is, then we need to look at how to improve mitochondrial health. And there's lots of ways of doing that, and I'm not going to go into those in these videos because I've done another video on it, and it would be just silly to repeat all of that. But then we have had another question, which is how do we increase the number of stem cells and also ensure the telomeres on those stem cells, or the telomeres on the DNA in those stem cells, are long enough so that they can actually divide? Because it's been known for some time that at the end of the DNA there's this sort of final bit on the DNA called a telomere, and as they get shorter you hit what's called the Hayflick limit. That is, the cell won't divide anymore, so we need to extend the telomeres. And interestingly, it has been found by research, I think this one was from Israel, where hyperbaric oxygen stimulates a thing called the hypoxia-inducible factor, HIF, which is a protein, which then encourages the creation of new stem cells with longer telomeres, and actually the growth of new cells in all sorts of places, including parts of the brain, which is interesting. Now, hypoxia means too little oxygen. And actually, arguably, this is a reason why certain animals live longer, like the naked mole rat, which disappears into the ground into areas with too little oxygen. But the problem is, if you get too little oxygen, you get brain damage. But in fact, you can also increase the oxygen level in the air you're breathing, and then reduce it back to normal. And that makes your cells think that you're in hypoxia, so it switches on HIF and it does all the good stuff it should do. And that's been done with hyperbaric oxygen therapy, HBOT. But it can also be done with an oxygen concentrator at what are called normobaric conditions, normo being normal, baric referring to the pressure in the air. So you can just sit there and breathe air from an oxygen concentrator at a sufficient concentration for a period of time, and it'll switch on HIF, not necessarily as well as being in a hyperbaric chamber, but it's a lot more convenient than sitting in a hyperbaric chamber. So let's have a look at this. This is one paper that looks at this, what's called the normobaric oxygen paradox, which is that the paradox is you get a low oxygen response from just coming back to normal oxygen, which, for those who are into that, appears to be linked to changes in the amount of reactive oxygen species. Back to this question about oxidative stress. So there we have it, actually. And what I do myself is I do use systems of the sort of hyperoxia, hypoxia, and I also take action to improve the health of my mitochondria, which in my view is a useful process. The difficulty with all of these things is they take quite a while to have an effect, so you can't measure an effect immediately. But I do think there is a gradual effect in terms of improving health. And my own health has improved over the last couple of years in a number of ways. And it's an issue you can discuss with your healthcare professional. And as I said, I will do some more videos about this. Some people do seem to quite like some of the videos. And if it's useful, please click a like, and that will encourage me to do more. But thank you for watching my video.